Hey everybody, Chris with HVACR Videos here. We are at Heatcraft Refrigeration Products in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and we're about to sit down with the Director of Commercial Operations to talk about customer service, how we can better help them as technicians, and how they can better help us as a manufacturer. All right, I am Chris with HVACR Videos, and I have the pleasure of talking with Mark
Dudden. Mark
Okay.
Dudden. I'm the Director of Commercial Operations here at Heatcraft Refrigeration.
Okay, and what does that role entail?
So I head up the customer service, both parts and equipment, as well as our application engineering group, as well as our aftermarket technical support group.
Okay, so when technicians call in for technical support, that's the group that you manage.
Correct.
Okay.
If contractor calls in, they'll usually be talking to either the parts customer service team or my aftermarket troubleshooting team that helps with installation and operation.
Okay, so as a contractor, as a technician, I find myself calling for technical support quite often. And I've had varied experiences from manufacturer to manufacturer. Quick little story was many years ago in my infancy as a technician, I remember calling an ice machine manufacturer's technical support department, and I was asking for troubleshooting help. And I remember the technician on the other line, or the CSS, asking me, hey, what is the superheat? And I remember my exact answer was, what is superheat? And then at that moment, all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. I heard a click and I was so embarrassed. Now, I realize now, I didn't know the answer to that question and he hung up on me. I think there's fault on both sides because as a technician, I think we have a responsibility to be informed when we call. But at the same time, I imagine that was bad customer service, and I imagine you would agree.
I would agree. We should help at that point try and educate
Right.
some and help guide you as to where you need to take temperatures and pressures and how to get there. But yes, hanging up on the customer, definitely not good customer service.
But I could imagine, again, thinking about that situation and putting myself in that perspective now, I could imagine myself being upset. And I could imagine that that guy had been working all day. He'd had a long day. He's fielded a lot of calls. And what I'd like to kind of get your feedback on is how myself as a technician, as a contractor, can be better prepared before I call you to ask you for help. What are some things that you think I can be more prepared with?
Well, definitely, from a troubleshooting standpoint, or even calling in for parts help, is try and get the model number and the serial number from the unit. Now, occasionally on some of the older units, the data tag may be faded.
Right.
But try and get as much information from the equipment as possible. If it's an outdoor condensing unit, grab the compressor serial number. A lot of times we can look up serial numbers, our unit serial number for the condensing unit, off the compressor serial number.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So we typically record both when they leave the factory. But then from there, what we would say is make sure to have done your observations and come up with an idea of what you think's going on. Make sure you have as much data as possible, temperatures, pressures, work through the system, look for obvious things, funny, story is, check your power.
Yeah.
We've seen guys where they're trying to troubleshoot and something's going wrong with the power supply. So just try and get as much information to the tech team as possible.
I think that, something that I tell my own technicians, even before they call me for help, because calling you guys, at the way that I operate my company, calling you guys is a last resort, okay? So they're gonna call and I'm gonna kind of field those questions and guide them in the right direction. Now, as a contractor, my perspective is a little bit different because I'm trying to educate. While I imagine you guys are trying to educate too, I lead my guys with questions. So when they call and say, hey, this isn't working, I say, well, why do you think it's not working? And I lead them in that way. But I imagine yours has to be a little different because you're not really there to, in a way, educate the technician like I might be because I'm trying to grow my technician. But I encourage them to have as much information ready. I tell my guys, get a notepad out and write down every piece of relevant information that you think, and go past the relevant information. Voltages, temperature drops, voltage drops, pressure drops, have everything. And I will go out on a limb and even say that sometimes you may even solve the problem before you call technical support. If you start recording that much information, do you think that'd be good advice?
Correct. Oh, definitely, definitely. In fact, in the installation operation manuals for most of our equipment, we do have a form in there to sort of record information, system information on there. But yeah, definitely come look, hook up your gauges, make sure you've already checked the pressures, check your temperatures, observe the system. And a lot of times you will find the issue before you need to call us. Now, when you do call us, like I said, be prepared, have your gauges still hooked up, because my team may be asking you to take some readings. But a lot of times, granted, to your point, training is best done at the company level, but my team will try and help train as much as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll step you through, especially with our electronic controllers. They'll be giving you instructions, push this button, and this is why you're pushing that button.
Right.
So to try and help bring up the level of the technician as well.
So one piece of advice that I would give technicians out there, something that I tell my techs, we have all this amazing technology now. We have smartphones, we have Bluetooth devices, we can do all kinds of stuff, but there's nothing worse than waiting in line, finally getting on the phone, and then you ask me something and I walk in the box and my cell phone loses reception. That's a frustrating one. So oftentimes what I'll tell my technicians to do is keep their Bluetooth device on, leave their phone outside of the box. And oftentimes Bluetooth has enough range that I can actually walk into the box, my phone will still be connected to the Bluetooth, and then we could still continue that conversation. So that's something that I will typically do because, there could be nothing frustrating, when you're trying to get your hands in there and it's like, oh, I lost them, and it's like, oh man. So I don't know if you can actually answer this question or not, but how many calls do you think as a customer service specialist you would field a day, individually?
On the parts team, they are a high volume call center, so they're handling about 80 to 90, sometimes 100 calls per person per day.
Wow.
So their calls are typically short. People are calling in a lot of times for price and part number and availability. So it's fairly quick.
Yeah.
I will say, if the wait time is long with regards to looking up part numbers and availability, if contractor has our hub software on their phone,
right,
they can do that with the equipment serial number. They can look up part numbers and get the availability. So,
and I'll say to your guys' credit too, something that I've noticed with the Heatcraft refrigeration products is oftentimes you guys will have QR codes on your equipment, you'll have part number tags on your equipment. There's been a couple times where I've been super thankful on a Saturday when I literally just worked on a walk-in freezer evaporator where I needed 3 evaporator motors, 3 fan guards, 3 brackets, and 3 blades all on the same day because of an extreme freeze-up situation. And it was very helpful to have the part numbers. They were literally on the side of the stuff, and it's like, then I can go to my wholesaler's website, look those part numbers up. It was like the diamond in the rough because I found the part numbers all available at one location. So that is really great. Also, I would imagine they can find a lot of their information if they don't have the smartphone app, which is the hub. You can go to heatcraftrpd.com, and I imagine you guys would have all that information on there too.
You can actually get into our parts catalog out there, and the hub is also online there as well.
Got you.
So, and then as far as technical service goes, those guys handle about 50 to 60 calls.
So I'm leading you into a point that I want to make right now with the technical service side. If they're doing 50 calls a day, I'd question you, how many of those calls are people having to call back?
That's a good question. I would say there's probably a good percentage. I don't know exactly how many. I would estimate you're probably talking at least a quarter.
So I would imagine that having the information that we talked about earlier, having that notepad ready, could eliminate a lot of those frustrating calls because then they don't have to call back if they have everything readily available when they call the first time.
Correct. So if they have all the information, they're there, observing the system, and it's ready to be troubleshot, then my team can do a much better job of helping the customer dive in. Now again, there may be times where we still, hey, do this step, and we think it's going to fix it, but then they have to call back.
And I would say too, again, it's so important to read installation operation manuals. You find out so much information when it comes to installation and when it comes to service. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made probably more than a lot of mistakes installing things without reading the installation operation manuals. I've stumbled onto problems that you guys have enlightened me on. You know, when I call in and I'm having weird circuit board issues with an older QRC system or an Intelligen system, and what it's actually been was the fact that I didn't read the installation operation manuals. I was doing retrofit replacements of equipment. I installed it on the existing setup, and I didn't run an independent power source to the evaporator coil, right? And in the weird situations, again, I know this is like problem after problem after problem, but we were having voltage drop. So on older systems, legacy walk-in freezer systems, more common in light commercial side, we would power the evaporator coil from the condensing unit. So you would have a time clock in the condensing unit, it would power. So when it came to retrofits, we would install your new system, new evaporator, new condenser on the roof, and we would utilize that existing power. And in these weird situations, I ran into some issues where we were having problems with the evaporator, and we traced it back to we were having voltage drop coming from the condensing unit. And where my mind was blown was when I got on the phone with one of you guys and I'm like, hey, I'm having this problem. And the question was, is your evaporator powered independently from the condensing unit? It's like, no, why would it be? And politely it was, well, if you read the installation operation manual, it specifically says in there that the evaporator needs to be powered independently from the condensing unit. So again, that was several phone calls back and forth, and me pulling my hair out, getting to the point back to, had I read the installation operation manual, we could have solved those problems. So I think it's really important that as technicians, as contractors, we put more emphasis on that. And I think it's really important too, and I imagine you would agree, that with all the new technology we have coming out, like, we can't really wing it anymore. We really do need to be reading that stuff and, you know, be more prepared.
Yeah, with the advent of electronic controls, programmable controls, it is a lot more critical that you read those installation operation manuals ahead of time if possible, so that you know how the programming sequence is, what the programming defaults are, so you can be prepared. I understand though, as a contractor, you may be showing up on a job not even knowing what's out there.
Fair point.
So, and you got the owner breathing down your neck and you're trying to help. We understand that. So, but we would prefer that, hey, once you get off that job, grab the manual, brush up on it, so that in case you have to go back out to that job, or the next time you see a Beacon, a QRC, an Intelligen, you're much more up to speed with it. So.
Very cool. So with all the new technology that we have, now I personally don't have any of these systems installed that have the web server cards installed on them because of customer fears and different things. Some of my customers don't want their systems connected to the internet. But my question to you is, if we have a web server card installed on a new Intelligen system, when it comes to technical support, are you guys able to remotely access that system and help us to troubleshoot while we're on the phone with you?
If the system has internet connectivity and it has been set up in the system, yes, my team can then pull up and look at pressures and temperatures with the technician.
So that's really interesting, because that's kind of a game changer when it comes to troubleshooting. And you know, you're no longer just relying on the technician to give you information. While that information is still important,
yes,
we also have new tools that can help all of us.
And a lot of times when they're talking to the technician, if they're seeing something on the screen, they're going to ask the technician to verify, hey, what is your pressure reading compared to what your pressure transducer is reading? You know, because it may be a bad sensor, may be a bad transducer that's causing the problem. So definitely remember though, even with an electronic control system, it's still mechanical, it's still a refrigeration system, still abides by the same laws.
So I've been in the industry for just about 20 years officially, and I've seen a lot of changes with technologies. Obviously, you guys are innovating with Intelligen, and then before that, QRC and Beacon and all these different technologies you guys have. But it's kind of crazy where things are going and how it's changing. Do you have an opinion about that?
Oh yes. So I've been with Heatcraft for 25 years, been in the industry for about 30 plus.
Okay.
And you're right, definitely when I came in, it was, you know, we were just starting to move out of the 12502 into the R22 and R404A, which was new.
Right.
And it's just the pace of that acceleration is continuing. So we're now starting to look at natural refrigerants again, going back to CO2, looking at A2L refrigerants coming on because of all the regulation changes, and really starting to see energy efficiency regulations affect it. DOE passed really the first energy regulations for us 2-3 years
with
ago
AWEF.
with AWF, yes.
Yeah.
And California had it before, though, when they started prescriptive changes. No more shaded pole motors, got to
Yep.
go to EC motors. So the technology drive there, but that pace just continues to speed up, and so a lot more changes coming.
It's oftentimes that I will communicate with people through social media groups, through emails, people watching my videos, and I'll see comments, and people are like, man, what are we going to do with these changes? And it's kind of funny because being from California, like I've been dealing with these changes for 2 years prior to any of this stuff coming out. So it's also interesting, whether you like it or not, what do you agree with, what you don't, we deal with a lot before a lot of people. So it's interesting.
Exactly. And so the manufacturers have to be prepared, and so we need to also communicate to the field, to the contractors, get them prepared.
Right.
So with all these changes, we have to continually push out more information. My teams have to be up to speed as well. So we do a lot of internal training on what's coming and everything. So, but yes, a lot of changes, refrigerant changes are going to be coming. I'm sure DOE is going to raise the energy efficiency levels here shortly, and then the continued electronic controls, because really a lot of times that's going to be what allows us to control to get the efficiency we need.
Obviously, we have all kinds of innovation coming in on the refrigeration side. I could only imagine that you guys have innovation coming in on the call center side with new sophisticated computer systems and different things like that. What kind of new technology do you guys have when it comes to phone calls? And
yeah, so we recently upgraded our phone system, knowing that when contractors call in, especially during the summer season, our hold times in the tech service team gets fairly long, longer than we'd like. So what we did was we implemented a new phone system that does allow you to do the automated callback system. So if a contractor's in the queue, he'll get offered the ability to leave their telephone number, and they'll keep their place in line.
Right.
So whatever position they were, once they get to the front of the line, we'll automatically start calling them back from there. In addition, we just implemented a customer relation management software. So we're capturing a lot of data this last month, and one of the things is, as a contractor, we're going to be asking you for your name, your company name. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're doing this is it allows us to create the contact and then link records to that contact. So if you're calling on a walk-in box at a Jack in the Box, next time you call in, if it's on that case, we'll have our notes from the previously. We'll be able to see that faster and start off with a better conversation.
And I think that's important because when it comes to, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine your software can also track that specific location, maybe?
If we can capture the location, a lot of times some people won't want to give that, but if we have that, it helps us filter. We can filter from that as well.
And where that would be beneficial is, let's just say they're using a new vendor, and this vendor's walking into a disaster, right? And he calls and he says, I'm working on this equipment. Then you guys have some data to go, okay, so you guys know what you guys are getting into, and it can kind of lead you in the right direction.
Exactly. And we can use that information to also start spotting trends if there's something going wrong. But it also helps us be more responsive and quicker. And generally, there will be a case number assigned to contact like that. So if you're calling back and can give us the case number, that will help us even further.
I'd imagine, again, with the way technology is going, my mind is kind of racing right now thinking about this, but if whether or not you can do it now or in the future, I imagine this would come where you could start to notice trends in a region. You know, and let's just say we're having a lot of, I'm from California, so we're having a lot of voltage drops, or we're having power outages, or different things like that, and we're having weird issues. It'd be interesting if this technology leads to a point where you can start to notice that in a specific region, we're having issues with this, and you can start to relate them.
Yes, and that's, that's part of the long-term focus of this, was to be able to better data capture so that we can better troubleshoot. Also potentially push out information to customers ahead of time, contractors ahead of time. Hey, we've noticed a lot of calls on this subject. Here's a service bulletin you can use that specifically addresses this issue, as well as identify, to your point, is it regional, is it national, is it a specific chain that's having an issue? Maybe they've got something misselected for their application.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, as we're having this conversation, my mind's kind of racing in different directions, but we're always so concerned about innovation on the technical side when it comes to equipment and parts and different things. But this is cool to hear about innovation on the other side, which is the customer service side, and what data can do for us. And the sky's kind of the limit when you think about it.
Oh yeah, in fact, we implemented also a automated character reader for our purchase orders, where it'll read the purchase order, put it up on the screen, no manual entry, potentially automatically processes the order.
That's really cool. So as a technician, when I call in, obviously we talked about how it's important for me to be prepared. Is there any other things that you can think of as a technician that I can do better to be better prepared? I mean, obviously having all the information ready, obviously having the models and serial numbers down, being more aware of the system. And I would imagine, again, I'm kind of answering my own question to you, but I would imagine going to your website and educating ourselves with the installation operation manuals before we make these calls, to help solve some of our problems. Is there anything I'm missing there?
I don't think so. I think, being as prepared as possible before the call. I mean, no one's going to know everything out there. So, and that's where my team's there to be the expert for you. But the better prepared, and pretty much I think you've covered it all. Have the information, equipment, model numbers, serial numbers, have your pressures, your temperatures, your voltages all recorded, have already thought about what could be causing it, check out what you can. If you come up with an iced coil, de-ice the coil, check the heaters. If it's not the heaters, start looking at your superheat, look at the various things. And then still can't figure it out, by all means, give us a shout.
And I'd say a couple points to make with that is iced up coils are a big one for me, and ice patterns actually matter. Paying attention and noticing trends with ice patterns, those are big. And types of ice. Is it a soft frost? Is it snow? Is it hard ice? That might indicate that it's been trying to defrost over and over and over again. So there's so many different things, and all that information matters. So I think it's important to share that.
Definitely. And if possible, a lot of times take a picture.
Yeah.
Because, giving our team a picture of an issue sometimes helps us pinpoint even better.
So lots of great information here, but let's kind of wrap this up and just cover a few things. So as a contractor, as a technician, I want to have my notepad filled out with all the information, more information than we think we could ever need. I want to have reviewed the installation and operation manuals. What else can I do better before I call you guys?
Well, obviously, you mentioned the installation operation manual. Go out, visit our website, look at the installation operation manuals if you don't have them handy. There may be a couple videos out there or some tech tips out there that could help you. Check out the hub if you're need a part or availability. You can look that up in the hub, which is out on the website, or you can have it on your smartphone. It's mobile friendly. You can also look up items in our app as well. So all that, and if you can't find it there, then by all means give my team a call. We'll be happy to help you.
And if I'm correct, the website is heatcraftrpd.com.
That is correct.
This has been very enlightening. It's awesome to hear the other perspective because, as a technician, I can be frustrated, but to understand the other side, to understand your perspective, to hear what you have to deal with, to hear how many calls. And I'm not trying to say pity you, but it really is a give and take on each side. And I really do appreciate you having this conversation. So thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate getting a glimpse into the contractor and the technician's life as well. And just to understand, we're here to help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.